I'm going to put this court into session. Right here we have the case of Jack Sullivan versus Uchiha Jones, even though Jack Sullivan can't come to his own case. But Donald Trump doesn't go to all his court cases either, so what can you do? On July 21st, 2019, my client had his ID stolen off him, which was used by the individual to commit a crime. When the individual who actually committed the crime was apprehended, Mr. Uchiha Jones was brought in and corroborated the individual's false identity, resulting in my client getting attempted second-degree murder on a peace officer and criminal possession of a firearm class 2, put on his record, and forcing him to hire an attorney to get his record clear. Mr. Jones' blatant lying statements to the police caused 2 major felonies to be put on my client's record, in which he did not deserve and would have not happened without the help of Mr. Jones.
I don't know how to make them louder, chat.
For the relief of
I don't know what to do.
$50,000 in defamation, $75,000 in punitive damages. Is this all correct, Mr. Callow?
You're correct.
All right. Would you like to give the opening statement?
Yeah.
I turned it up in TeamSpeak.
Your Honor, people of the court, I stand here today on a case about just lying. It's lying. Do we really want to tolerate lying in this city? Is that really allowed? Mr. Jones came to the courthouse, or to MRPD, excuse me, and purposely lied. Knew he was lying.
Chat, be nice.
In effect, made my poor client have 2 major felonies on his record. He had to deal with a case of getting those cleared, and then he had to deal with the slander that was involved with it.
Why?
He's a liar. Thank you.
Arson?
Mel, I will hold you in contempt. We're in an open trial here.
You stole my job.
Get fucked.
Mr. Jones.
Yes, Your Honor.
The opening statement.
Yes, Your Honor. I will begin that process now. Dear people of the court, I stand before you here today, and as you can tell, I am in defense of myself, Uchiha Jones of Kansas, Japan, son of a murdered father, son of a murdered mother. It is without a doubt in my mind that not only am I not guilty of the charges against me today, but I'm extremely, undoubtedly, unmistakably, irrevocably, and geographically innocent. Not only am I innocent of these charges, but the allegations regarding my name are absolutely false. This is inextricable, capacetic, plethoric, and the nomenclature reveals a massive flaw in the justice system here in Los Santos. Now, this individual who was in custody, who went by the name of Ricky, was an individual who I truly believed went by the name Jack Sullivan. My client, me, volunteered to go to Mission Row Police Department to identify this individual. This same individual who cut my arms and legs off. There's no reason for me to defend this individual. I was unaware that this individual's name was Ricky until the charges were pressed against me.
Or are you telling me the details of the case?
That's it, Your Honor.
Okay.
All right.
Case closed.
Mr. Gallo, would you like to call your first witness?
I would. I'd like to call Officer Reinhardt to the stand, please.
Sure. Alright, can you raise your left arm for me? Alright. Do you swear to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalty of perjury, so help you Jess?
I do.
Look at all these losers.
This is sworn in.
So weak.
I haven't heard that one in a while. All right. You may ask us some questions.
Officer Reinhardt, were you involved in the incident regarding on July 24th that we're talking about right now?
I honestly do not recall.
Okay. Do you know who Jack Sullivan is?
No.
Do you know who Uchiha Jones is?
Yes.
Do you know who Ricky Robbins is?
Yes.
Did you... You don't remember this incident?
No, I've also been in ICU like 3 times this week, so no.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm glad that you're out and feeling better.
Sorry, chat.
How
Thank
many
you.
run-ins have you had with Mr. Jones?
Let's say, I don't even know.
So
Quite a few.
more than you can count.
Yes.
Okay. Has he ever... Does he have a reputation for lying? Does he lie to you? Has he lied to you before?
I do not recall.
Okay.
Got him.
No further questions.
Chat, Uchiha doesn't know about the objections. I'm not gonna...
Would you like to come redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. What does it mean to redirect?
You need to ask her questions that are in the scope of the questions that he asked.
All right.
Something like that.
My dear friend that stands before me, do I look like a liar?
Objection.
What's the objection?
How can she make that kind of...
What objection's that?
Look at
How
me.
can she make that kind of observation?
What objection
It's
is that, Mr.
speculation.
Kello? All right, sustained.
Your Honor, have I ever my lady, have I ever lied to ya?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
No further questions, Your Honor. I don't even know who this lady is.
Oh, yeah, you're free to sit down.
Cool.
Sit down.
You're good.
Sorry, I'm new.
Your Honor, I'd like to let you know that my client, Mr. Sullivan, was able to get here.
Perfect.
So he is here. And I would like to call him as my next witness.
Would you like to call your next witness? Was it him you said?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a glass there. All right. There you go. All right, can you raise your left arm for me? All right. Do you swear to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury, so help you Jess?
I do.
All right. This witness is sworn in, Your Honor.
All right, you may question.
Can you state your name for the court, please?
Jack Sullivan.
Mr. Sullivan, on the morning of July 24th, what happened?
Well, I got, there was an individual that had taken my ID and my car from me, which pretty much made me go to the PD to report it. And then found out later that Uchiha Jones had come into the PD to pretty much, what he had told me was that there was someone that had his limb and used his fingerprint or something like that to basically use them for the PD to I guess just to do the fingerprint thing. But then when he approached me, he asked me who I was. I told him I was Jack Sullivan.
Who
He
said
had-
that, sir?
That was Uchiha Jones.
He asked you who you were?
Yes, he asked me who I was.
When
I
was
informed-
this?
This was when I was in the PD awaiting for Officer Shepard and Officer Riggs to update me after me viewing the suspect that was in lockup. And afterwards, what had happened was Uchiha Jones, when we were talking, he told me that he was in there because of the person using his fingerprints or I guess his thumb or his finger or whatever to pretty much make false fingerprints. And then he had told me that the person that called him claimed that they were Jack Sullivan, but he had told me that the person on the phone didn't sound like Jack Sullivan. It sounded like someone he knows, and me, Jack Sullivan, never met Uchiha Jones until that day at the PD.
Okay.
I'm gonna put this on pause for a second. Mr. Midas, are you available to take any cases? Is it Mr. Midas in here?
No.
I don't see him.
Mr.
Yeah.
Mattis is not here.
Don't have any other attorneys in here?
Your Honor, Chris McGraw's here.
Lawrence Splainer is also here, Your Honor.
Mr. Uchiha, would you like representation?
I believe that would be in my best self-interest.
Well, look behind you and
Yeah.
pick one.
Mr. Jones, we had talked before about it, if you recall.
Yes. Let me guide you to my place over here.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Thank
If I
you.
may,
Your,
could I
Your
ask
Honor,
for
I
can
don't
we
even
call
know who that guy is.
10-minute recess?
10 minutes,
Uh,
Your Honor. I object to 10 minutes.
Why?
Why?
That's way too long.
10 minutes is too long.
Yes. We've already been waiting. This is...
I am going to overrule that objection and 10 minutes recess.
Honestly, 5 minutes should be suitable, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Recess has already been called for.
Y'all can use the chambers in the back to talk.
Give up.
Okay, Mr. Sullivan. So, before the recess, you mentioned that you were speaking with Mr. Jones after he identified the person that was there as you, correct?
No. So this was before. So pretty much, he had come up to me and told me that he came here to he came to the PD to speak to an officer about the person that was in the holding cell, because they said that the person that had called them claimed that they were Jack Sullivan, and like I said, me, Jack Sullivan, never met Uchiha Jones before. So when he had came up to me, he asked me who I was, so I told him that I was Jack Sullivan.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sullivan. So before he went down there to ID the person, he asked you who you were.
Yes.
And then you told him your name was Jack Sullivan, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then, did you speak with him after he ID'd?
I
Objection,
did not.
leading.
I was just asking a question, Your Honor.
Can you repeat that question? What for?
I just said, did you see Mr. Jones after he ID'd somebody?
I'm going to sustain that objection.
I did not see him after.
No,
I
he
No, I
was-
sustained it. He sustained it. Let me.
Oh, okay.
What happened after?
Afterwards, I was waiting for an officer. I spoke to Officer Riggs after he told me that to go down to the courthouse to get a copy of my ID, which I did, and then later came back to the PD to show the officer the copy of my ID to prove that I am Jack Sullivan.
Which officer was it?
It was Officer Riggs.
Okay. Was there any other officers there?
I know
Involved?
that there was a female. I don't believe I met them before.
Okay. That's all.
Would you like to redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Good day, Mr. Sullivan.
Hello.
You said that you had just met Mr. Jones for the first time, correct?
Yes.
Did you ask him for ID to verify who he was?
Nope.
So you just took someone at their word as they introduced themselves?
Yeah, I mean, why not?
No further questions, Your Honor.
You can step down.
Got him, Goog. Wasn't it good?
You got any other witnesses? witnesses?
I'd like to call Mr.
Virus.
Jones to the stand, please.
Mr. Jones, can you come up to the stand?
Absolutely.
What?
All right, can you raise your left arm for me?
Sha.
Do you swear to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury, so help you Jess?
I do.
All right.
Christ.
Witness is sworn in, Your Honor.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
did you go to the PD on July 24th?
Can I plead the fifth on this?
Would you go into the PD on the 4th and incriminate yourself?
Well, I definitely was there.
Well, thank you. Also, why were you there?
I was there to identify a man.
And who was that man?
Well, the man was apparently Ricky, a guy who cut off my limbs.
Thank you. So the person you were there to identify was Ricky?
Who I thought at the time was Jack, yes.
Why did you think he was Jack?
He had always told me that he was Jack.
So you're telling me that you've always known Ricky as Jack Sullivan or as Ricky?
Objection, compound.
I'm going to sustain that.
Do you know the individual as Ricky?
Not until the charge is pending against me.
Not until the charge. So not until this case did you know his name was Ricky.
Yes.
Did you not just say your arms and legs were cut off?
I don't need to know the man's real name in order for him to cut off my arms and legs.
Wait, hold on. There's an objection.
Your
Can you
Honor,
repeat that question again so I can make sure?
I asked him if he knew who the person who cut off his arm and legs were.
That's already been established in the courtroom. I'm kind of curious. I'm going to overrule that.
I
Mr.
didn't know
Jones?
his name at the time of when he was cutting off my limbs. No. But I did speak to him after the case.
Did you speak with Mr. Sullivan at the courthouse? At the MRPD?
I've never seen the man.
You've never had a conversation with that man, my client?
Not that I recall.
Let me remind you that you are under oath, Mr. Jones.
Not that I recall, sir.
Badgering.
I'm going to overrule that. That's not really badgering just yet. If he keeps continuing, though, it's leading down that path.
You do not recall, is your answer.
It was a insane day, and I had been mugged even before heading to the Mission Row Police
Thank you,
Department.
Mr. Jones. Do you know a Ricky Robbins? Have you met him before?
The man that is legally Ricky Robbins, yes, I have known him.
And for the whole time you've known him, you never knew his name until now.
Well, I didn't know his name for a while, and then he began introducing himself as Jack Sullivan, the man I knew him as. I don't even have him in my phone as Ricky Robbins.
No further questions.
Girl, you like to redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Jones, when you met the person now known as Ricky, did you ask him for ID when you were introduced to him?
I did not.
Did you put your trust in him that he introduced himself as a proper person would?
Not necessarily. We weren't on good terms.
Okay. But he always referred to himself as Jack Sullivan.
Yes, and that is how I referred to him as well.
No further questions, Your Honor.
I'm good, Your Honor.
You can step down.
Thank you. How did we? I'm confused. How did we self-cuck?
I'd like to
I'm trying to
call
get
next,
an arc going.
Senior Deputy Colt Shepard to the stand, please.
I think I misheard the question anyways. Whatever, it's not that big of a deal. You guys need to chill.
All right, can you raise your left arm for me? All right, do you swear to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing
No.
but the truth?
Why would I
under the
trust Ricky
pains and
Robbins? He
penalties of
cut
perjury,
my
so
arms
help you
off.
Yes.
I do.
All right, this witness is sworn in, Your Honor.
You can continue.
Officer Shepard, how are you doing?
Good, counselor. How about you?
Not too bad. So, you were involved in the incident on July 24th, correct?
Yes, I was.
In what capacity were you involved?
I arrived on scene to provide backup on Los Santos Freeway. There was a shootout in progress near the casino.
Were you at the MRPD also?
Yes, I transported one of the suspects to the hospital and then to Mission PD lockup.
Okay. Were you present when Mr. Jones was there?
Yes, I was present at Mission PD when Mr. Jones came down.
Were you the officer involved in the identification process?
I was one of the two. So I was on the side of the glass with the suspect, Mr. Robbins. We were in the viewing area down there in the lineup room. Deputy Riggs brought Mr. Jones down to confirm his identity, and he radioed me afterwards.
Okay. And you said that Mr. Jones, I'm sorry, you didn't say, but was Mr. Jones brought into ID, and what did he do?
Your ID, or objection, Your Honor, compound.
I
Stay.
withdraw.
What does compound
was
mean?
Mr. Jones brought in to identify the man?
He was.
And what was his answer?
He told Deputy Nicholas Riggs that the man that I had on my side of the glass in the viewing area in the lineup room was Jack Sullivan.
What did the fingerprints come back as?
The fingerprints came back to Uchiha Jones.
Okay. And who was charged eventually?
At the end of the day, we did charge Jack Sullivan with the crimes, based in part on Mr. Sullivan was charged based on Mr. Jones's testimony there.
So, because of Mr. Jones's testimony at the identification process, he was charged as Jack Sullivan, the person whose fingerprints came back as Uchiha Jones, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And do you know a Ricky Robbins?
I do.
Okay. And was that person on the other side glass, did he look like Mr. Robbins, or that you were with?
The man that I had, yeah, that was Ricky Robbins.
Okay, so you are saying that you know that man as Ricky Robbins and not Jack Sullivan?
Correct. Now, at the time, I did not know him, but I do
That's-
now know him
that's
to be
fine.
Ricky Robbins.
Thank you. No further questions.
Good evening, Mr. Shepard.
How are you, counselor?
Fine, thank you. Was there not a plea deal in place with another suspect involved in the crimes that identified the person now known as Ricky Robbins as Mr. Sullivan?
Objection, relevance?
Your Honor, it goes to prove that my client is not the only person who ID'd Ricky Robbins as Jack Sullivan that night.
I'm gonna overrule that. I want to hit.
I have no knowledge of any plea deal.
Do you not recall dealing with Mr. Denzel Williams and myself and reducing his sentence due to IDing the gentleman as Jack Sullivan?
Objection, scope? This testimony
Yep.
was not put in.
Yep, I'm gonna sustain that. And that's the most leading question I think I've ever heard in this courtroom.
Fair enough, Your Honor. Your Honor, I have no further questions, but I'd like to recall Mr. Shepard later.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm good, Your Honor.
I just want to clarify that he was crossed, therefore he could leave, but that was definitely out of the scope. You can step down.
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
You have any other witnesses?
I do not.
All right. Does the defense have any witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. Recall Mr. Deputy Shepard, please. Mr. Shepard, what resources were used to properly identify the suspect?
To identify the suspect, we used possession of a driver's license, we used fingerprints, and we used the testimony of Mr. Uchiha Jones.
There were no other outlying factors that helped in identifying him?
You mean attempted, or do you mean the ones that we were actually successful in getting?
Attempted.
We tried to get a blood sample or a DNA swab to confirm his identity, but he claimed to have a very dangerous and contagious form of AIDS, and he didn't want to risk spreading it to the city, so he declined that. We had tried to get him down to the courthouse to buy a new ID. He claimed that due to his Jewish faith and heritage, he could not go to the courthouse on a Sunday, even though it was a Wednesday. We tried to get a hair sample, but he said due to his athletic performance as a professional swimmer, he did not have any hair samples to give. So we attempted many different avenues.
Okay. Did you ever attempt to secure a warrant to get bodily fluids or substances to ID him?
I did attempt to get a warrant, but there were no judges available to respond to the warrant request, and I felt like it would be unreasonable to hold him.
Well, that's understood. Did you ever attempt to Did you ever attempt to ID him through people he was brought in with, involved in the same incident?
I'm gonna be honest, it's possible that I did, but I have no memory of doing that. It's possible that I did, though.
Okay. No, that's totally understandable. I mean, we're all human. Your Honor, no further questions at this time.
Would you like to redirect?
I would. Thank you. Officer Shepard, were you able to talk to my client at all?
I believe I talked to him briefly in the lobby of Mission Row Police Department.
At what time did you do that? Before or after?
This was while the suspect was in custody. He dialed 311, Mr. Sullivan did, to report that his license had been stolen, and we had him meet in the lobby of Mission Road to take a statement. So I think I did come up to meet with him briefly, and then we agreed that we'd have him come down to the lineup room with Deputy Riggs.
And when he came down to the lineup room, what happened?
In the lineup room, Mr. Sullivan identified the man as the man who had robbed him of his license.
And he also identified himself as Jack Sullivan, correct?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And were you around when my client had a talk with Mr. Jones?
I was not present for that, no.
Was there another officer there?
Yeah.
Upstairs with him?
It may have been Deputy Riggs, but that's just speculation. I have no idea.
Okay.
Nobody
Mr.
was
Shepard.
there.
Officer Shepard?
Except Chang.
So, girl, you have any further questions?
No, Your Honor.
You can step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. McGraw, you have any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
You rest?
Yes,
rest?
Your Honor.
Okay.
I guess that's it.
Mr. Gallo, would you like to give your closing statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Short and sweet, chat.
Your Honor and people of the court, my client, Mr. Sullivan, has testified himself that he had contact with the defendant in the lobby, and they had a discussion. And in that discussion, Mr. Jones identified himself as Mr. Jones, and he said that somebody called him to come identify the person downstairs as Mr. Jones, as Mr. Sullivan, excuse me. However, Mr. Jones refutes a claim of speaking. Officer Shepard has testified that Mr. Jones was called down there, and the person who was under arrest was not my client, and Mr. Jones identified the person down there as my client. Mr. Sullivan has never met Mr. Jones in his life, and he's testified to that, and Mr. Jones has not refuted that claim. Mr. Jones also wants you guys to believe that the person who supposedly stole his arms and legs, he has no idea who they were up until a few days or whatever, until before this case.
That's not.
And before he was called by that person, he even was called by the person he didn't know his name. As I said in my opening statement, are we really going to let people lie, and not only lie, but lie in front of the court, perjure themselves? We need to take a firm stance against lying, especially to the officers, the great officers of this county, and to this great court and these great judges. Thank you.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
Mr. McGraw, close him.
Your Honor and people of the court, Plaintiff would have you believe that Mr. Jones intentionally identified someone as Mr. Sullivan, even though he knew he was not. We have no proof of that. We have no proof that Mr. Jones ever knew it was Ricky. We don't have proof of a conversation in Mission Row PD between Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Jones. Even the plaintiff himself said, when introduced to him, he didn't ask for ID. He doesn't verify who he's talking to, he takes people at his word. Now, Mr. Jones may have a record, he may have been in trouble in the past, but he's cleaning up his act. He's a clean man. He's recently attained his gun license. He's been out of trouble. He wouldn't intentionally do anything like this. He merely trusted the wrong person. There's no fault at trusting someone. No one here would reasonably sit there and speculate if someone is who they're introducing themselves as. Your Honor, that's all. Thank you.
We're gonna put this court into recess. Come back by wearing any outbursts in any way, you will be held in contempt. I'm gonna put this court back in a session. I gotta say, boys, you guys took me on a ride where I had no idea what was going on outside the windows of me being inside my bubble. At no point in time did I have any idea what the hell was going on in this case. This is the most confusing clusterfuck of a case I've ever heard. I'll be honest with you. But that being said, I have got to the bottom of a few things. Mr. Uchiha did make claims that the person that was Ricky Robbins was Jack Sullivan. Mr. Uchiha said that Mr. Ricky Robbins always said that his name was Jack Sullivan. The plaintiff never gave any evidence whatsoever to debate that.
Yep.
As far as I heard, Uchiha always thought that was Ricky Robbins. You know, and that little conversation they had on the stairs, that's a lot of he said, she said from someone that's suing the individual and not any outside witnesses to corroborate it. Quite honestly, I don't know why you're not suing Ricky Robbins at this time. You'd have a pretty damn good case against him. Why you're suing Mr. Uchiha here is beyond...
Yes!
I don't know what the hell's going on in this case. I think you got the wrong person. I am going to award no money at all to Mr. Jack Sullivan. This case is going to be closed. Mr. Uchiha doesn't owe him any money. But I do recommend that you file suit against Ricky Robbins.
1,000 biddies? Fuck
that's a pretty
yes.
good case you have there.
Thank you.
But this route you're taking, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. This case is closed.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, people of the court.
I knew you were.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mr. Jones?
Yes?
Yeah.
Come here. Oh, excuse me. Hey, Jerry.
Gentlemen, you both did good.
Sorry.
Again, McGraw for
You mean to tell me that a man cut off your arms and legs?
Yes, in fact, I actually contacted the police many times regarding it. This was months ago.
Really?
But nobody took me seriously.
Nobody took you seriously?
I mean, to be honest, Ricky Robbins' thumbprint did come up as me.
Yeah, that's that was laid bare in another case. Have you ever thought of, trying to sue him civilly in an attempt to regain your limbs?
Well, not really, because the cybernetic upgrades that I have now actually transcend my physical feats that I could do before. So I like who I've become.
All right, well that's fine. But you could technically just do it out of spite, just to take him back.
I am not a man of spite. I am a man that just continues forward, focuses on myself.
All right, that's fine. I was just checking, just making sure that if there was some type of legal route that you wanted to take to deal with that.
No, I appreciate it.
That's all right. I really can't believe that nobody looked into, because I mean Choi installed all that stuff, right?
Yeah, it was a very tough couple weeks crawling around as a fucking nugget.
Yeah, it's well documented that you're a mandroid now.
This is true. This is very true.
Yeah.
And they just
documented that I ate Kelly. Now he's inside of me.
What the hell?
I ate Kelly. He's dead.
God damn it, Bill.
Yeah, I feel that too.
You got a new toy, didn't you,
I
man?
feel like I've had a high-profile.
There's no nail.
A pretty high-profile bench trial. It's still.
What the heck is going on here?
That's a loser.
Oh God in heaven.
What the heck?
So someone's trying a little too hard to be rolling.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Oh. All right, let's get out of here. Thank you, Your Honor.
See you later.
All you had to do was defy the preponderance, and that was.
Thank you very much, sir.
No problem. Did you want to retain me as your counsel for the criminal as well, sir?
Absolutely, and I look forward to paying you at the time as well.
Again, that's not needed, but if you feel it is, by all means.
That's not fair.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Jones, congratulations on your win.
Okay,
Excuse me.
Thank you.
I'll post on there that
Yeah.
I'm going to be your attorney.
what route do I need to
you can
take,
confirm it as well, and then
how can
I'll be there for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
No
it.
problem, sir. You have a good day.
Becoming a lawyer.
You want any co-counsel on that, McGraw?
I would.
Yeah, baby.
Obviously, I just want it for the experience.